So, welcome to the How It's Built podcast. My name is Aoife Roach, and I am the host of this podcast. So, on this podcast, what I really like to do is go out and try to find founders, entrepreneurs, tech executives, everything from people who've run companies with hundreds of thousands of people to people who are running smaller operations. And we really focus on how it was built. What did you do during your entrepreneurial journey to build what you're working on? We also have a heavy focus on AI within this podcast because, as all of you know, I own the trademark for the AI Queen and speak a lot on AI. So I love talking to people about their AI integrations, implementations, and what they're doing in their AI. Today, I have the pleasure of having Fergus Foran on with me, a fellow Irishman. So Fergus, great to meet you and welcome to the show.
Hey, Aoife, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Thank you for coming on all the way from Ireland. How's everything at home?
Oh, great. The weather is just unbelievable. I believe it's hotter than Las Vegas at the moment.
Really?
Bit of the Irish humour there, Aoife. No, it's
Wait,
not.
you know what? You know what? You need good bit of weather. I keep saying that to my family all the time. It just changes the mood and the
It
temperature
does.
of everyone when the weather is good.
It
So,
does, yeah.
Fergus, this is an introduction to the audience. Tell the audience a
Mhm.
little bit about what you do in Ireland with regard to right now, and then we can do a little retrospective on what you would have done previously.
Okay, so we are just in the startup stage of a new business called Nexus Novum. And essentially, what that is, we bought a premises in Edenderry, which is around the Midlands in Ireland. And it's quite a central location from Dublin and lots of the other counties within Ireland, so it's easy to get to as well. And what that business will entail is it will essentially be a media hub. So, media production, content creation, and also we'll be doing a lot of training creation. Something I suppose particularly relevant to what we're talking about today is that we will use and are currently using AI in the implementation of programs there as well. So that in a nutshell is what Nexus Novum is. We have mobile studios as well that can go out and record on site in the same way as a news team might do. So we've two of those at the moment. We hope to expand that as well. So that's Nexus Novum. My business partner, Ian Brabazon, is a former lecturer in Trinity College in media technology. And so one of the I suppose we got together as partners on this because it's something we both love to do. We both have a background in different types of entertainment production and in education as well. I ran a training company. He was a lecturer. He's also a sound engineer. We both had put on concerts and stuff like that. So we decided to meld our skill sets, and Nexus Novum is the result of that. So that's our new business that we're really excited about at the moment.
Okay, so just on that topic, when you're talking about AI content creation, right? So I'm in the US, and obviously we're a little bit ahead of the market with regard to what we're doing. What are you seeing in the Irish industry where with levels of adoption when people are talking about AI content, and what sort of AI content are you talking about creating?
Okay, well, we feel, we've just gotten into this in the last year or so. And from following you, actually, that's what first piqued my interest in this. And I was going, the company I had years ago, Precision Academy, we were early adopters of online learning management systems in Ireland. And it took more than a decade for it really to take off here and for people to really get onto it. And even with some of the American multinationals that were here, that were slow on the uptake. What I'm seeing with AI and AI generated content, particularly, and I was surprised at this within the construction industry, that companies see that the using AI for a fast turnaround. One of the big things in construction, for example, would be you have 800 people in a period of time coming onto your site. They all need a site safety induction. They all need their training records stored, processed, double checked. And that I find is where Ireland is going to be an earlier adopter perhaps than they were with online learning management systems, because you can demonstrate very quickly where the saving is and where the efficiencies are, and it doesn't reduce the quality of the training and the induction that people get. And quite the converse. And what we've demonstrated is by using AI to generate these videos. Okay, and you generate your videos, you do it in any language that you want. So if you have a multinational workforce who don't have English as their first language, you can send them that induction before they arrive in. It's AI generated, it's in their own language. When they then, and part of that is that they upload their training records, it's then cross-referenced and checked, and everyone makes sure that everything is correct. And then when these employees come to site, which are generally very dangerous work environments, when they come to site, then they get to do a tour of the site, and that valuable time when workers, particularly younger apprentices or inexperienced workers, arrive on site, that time is then better used focusing on what's really important on site, taking a walk around, looking at, where the dangers are, instead of sitting in a room for 2 hours, nodding asleep while somebody clicks with a clicker slide by slide. So that really has, if I'd have to say that it's a much easier sell than the online learning management systems were, because people are at the stage go, we can send this to these people before they even arrive on site and make sure they're aware before they arrive. And you can make sure we have their records before they arrive. That's fantastic. So that really is one area I can specifically say in the last 6 months I've seen that.
Yeah, so we started our training with, the first company that I had, which we've now done a rebrand of, taken an Irish name, which we would call it Double, but in America they'll call it Double, which is actually double, right?
Yes.
Which you just branded as that. And it's very specific with AI-powered personas. So we have kind of 3 verticals that we target. We are targeting where we'll actually create a direct replica of the person, or, a digital double, as I would call it, that moves the same, looks the same, everything. Then we have AI-powered influencers that we're actually custom building for brands, depending on the look and feel of the influencer that they want. And then we have the other one, which is our photo generation technology, where we will take images of people and I can say it on the podcast, people can go and look at my socials. The vast majority of images because I've been running a test, of course, I'm always testing as a marketer. The vast majority of images that have been on my social media of recent are all AI generated images of me, and nobody has even noticed. They're, in fact, I would arguably say they're getting more engagement than the real.
Yeah, I know, which is crazy. But that is interesting you say that, because we did get a little bit of pushback. So I was on a consultancy job with Foran Consultancy, which is quality, environment, health and safety, which is my kind of background on my long-term business, which kind of built everything else that I've worked on since, which allowed me to finance it. And one of the interesting things was you get that reaction, and I remember this reaction where you say, this is an AI generated person here, and we've given him an Irish accent, and no AI, it's not the same. And then they watch it, and immediately afterwards you're getting this message going back, that's brilliant. I can't believe that. That is, how long is it going to take you to do that? So straight away then we saw, with the online learning management systems, there was always a bit of people were inclined to hold back and go, look, I'm not sure, some of these people wouldn't be great with computers. And now what we can say is, look, they all have Facebook. If they have a phone, if they know how to get on Facebook, or if they know how to get on Insta, or if they know how to send a text message, they can use this system. So from the point of view of us putting everything now on an app, that you can just sell that app, which is AI generated. The content on it is AI generated, and that's perfectly useful for the specific clients that we're looking at. We'll have to do a lot more homework on it as we progress and as we grow and as we get more investment in the company. But for now, we're kind of bootstrapping which, I love doing. I love when you're setting up a business and you have to do lots of things yourself, but you have to become expert at it yourself before you then go on to see what else is out there. So I find that really exciting at the moment. I'm not sure if you share that, but for me, I get a great buzz out of it.
One of our core products right now that we do at the moment is obviously building out the AI influencers, and we've built courses and trainings for people. And I think you hit the nail on the head there with the opportunity, and that is as the world becomes more open and with the multicultural and the diversity, and especially in Ireland, right? Anytime I go home, I'm always a little bit shocked at how diverse
Yeah.
the Irish workforce has actually become. But
Yes.
the idea that you can take a digital double of a person now. I've struggled. I don't know how you guys are doing it, but the Irish accent, and please be the first to really hone in on that, because we just don't have a whole lot of data
Yeah.
in the LLMs that are very specific on voice. The Irish accent can be a little bit tricky, right? We all kind of sound like
Yeah.
leprechauns.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
But the idea that you can take a digital version of someone, create and script out your content in the same way that you would for your learning management system, similar to
Hmm.
what you would have done previously, and be able to create that in multiple different languages that can be delivered depending on the person who's doing the training.
Yeah.
The level of safety that enhances is just massive within an organization.
It's huge.
So that we're not running into these language barriers and the communication barriers. The other
Hmm.
real great thing about what you're doing is, because we looked at this with another company, they charge on average $150 to go out and do production for their LMS system, and they want to partner with us so that they can go out and offer this as a product and service. We're
Hmm.
reducing their costs probably from like 150 down to 40 or $50,000 simply
Wow.
by using AI generated content,
Yeah.
because we're able to do it faster, we're able to do it quicker. We've no dependency on the humans. Nobody has to learn the scripts. We don't have to hire a studio. We don't need the videographers. We don't need to do massive amounts of editing because it's scripted, and the AIs, like obviously there's nuances in some of the way the voice can come out. But
Hmm.
overall, the way the technology is moving, it's an open market right now, and it's very much
Yeah.
a blue ocean. So I love the idea that you are leading the way on that, right? Someday, hopefully, maybe I'll come back and I can start to do some speaking in Ireland, similar
Oh,
to what
yeah.
I do here, because I just feel like that the Irish market right now isn't tapping into that as much as it actually should be tapping into that. One of the core things that I always want to talk to people about on this podcast as well, sticking with the theme of how it's built, is talk about resilience, right?
Mm.
And because as entrepreneurs, and I think you know and I know, things go wrong every single day.
Yeah.
To be honest, just depending on the degree of
Yeah.
how you want to do it. And I know that you, as an entrepreneur, have faced two challenges: one, a health challenge, and two, with regard to a business failing. So, could you talk to me about that topic, about one, how you overcome and get the mindset to come back in good health, and second, with regard to how you can deal with when a venture fails, which people don't
Hmm.
really understand, right? 90% of businesses fail before year 5. You go on social media and everyone's a millionaire. Everyone thinks that everyone has it all together except for them, and that's really not the case when we look at the data.
Hmm.
Very few businesses ever make 7 figures, and even fewer ever get to 8 figures, 9 figures, and beyond. And after 5 years, 90% of them are dead in the water,
Yeah.
most likely because of cash flow. That's
Hmm.
really what we see is happening. So, talk to me about those two kind of pivotal transitory moments in your life.
Okay. So there were two. Let me start with the business failure first, because in chronological order, it's probably the right way to do it. So my biggest failure, and I don't even see it as a failure. It was a
Learn,
failure in that the
you're
business
learning.
the business didn't work. But I didn't starve or end up homeless or anything like that. And it was one of those things, and I'm still a bit like this today. The difference is now I have that cushion of financial security that I didn't have when I was in my 20s. So it was a company I set up called Exclusive Sound Factory. And essentially what it was, we had been working as musicians, me and some of my friends, and we had put on a few concerts. They were quite successful. So we said, look, let's take this up a notch. We had good contacts in the Irish music industry. We were kind of building on that. I had a record deal, a 5 album record deal. So I said, okay, we'll need a vehicle to put all this money that's going to come flying in with this record deal. So we set up Exclusive Sound Factory. And we didn't really have a huge plan other than it was going to be a vehicle for our creative projects. And I suppose over the matter of a few years, it became obvious that we had sunk every penny into it. And when I say we, it was me, because it was my money that had gone into it at the time. I think at one time I was working as a doorman in a club in town. I was working as a driver for a lease company, and I was painting bedrooms just to get cash in to keep the business going, which was never going to work. So the idea, I suppose, what I really learned from that was know how much money you're prepared to lose. Quit early. So if something isn't working, it's not working, either stop, look at it and go, is it going to work? Or should I get out of it now? So that's something, that I should have done. And that's something that I definitely learned, that, if it's not working out, change track, come up with another idea. And then I suppose the other thing was as well is that if you're going into business with a friend, make sure you have everything in a contract. Everything is there. If you're going to be friends or not in 10 years' time, it's irrelevant, really. The business is a business, so everything needs to be down on paper and everything needs to be agreed in advance. And what happens if one person wants to go, or what happens if the business fails, etc. So I suppose I learned a lot about how to run a business, ironically, because I was we did keep it afloat for a few years. So, you learned a lot about systems and generating sales and, CRM and stuff like that. It just, there wasn't enough money coming in. We weren't doing enough of it. And we were spending more than we were making. And that was it. We wound it up.
Because you've hit on some really great points in there, right? That I think that as entrepreneurs, there can be a tendency to fall in love with our ideas. Mm-hmm. And the having these KPIs, metrics, numbers, and timeline that you hold yourself accountable to go, mm-hmm. Listen, if I'm throwing the kitchen sink at this and it's still not working, what is my get out clause with regard to at what point am I going to stop the bleeding? Because unfortunately, a lot of people stay far longer than they should doing the wrong thing, which then gets in the way of them doing the right thing. And from your perspective, what was that threshold moment for you when you just said, this is it?
Well, the threshold moment for me was when I literally had no money and I had to go and borrow money off somebody to get me through the next week. And when it was a good friend of mine, way older than me, a good 30 years older than me, and he actually said to me, look, he said, if you're needing to borrow money to pay for the groceries for next week, then you probably need to be looking at doing something else. And that was it. The following week, the decision was made. Called a meeting with the then business partner and said, look, this isn't working, let's wrap it up. And then I had to borrow more money then to pay off the accountancy fees and stuff like that. In the meantime, back to consultancy work, which is where, there's good money in the kind of consultancy work I'm doing. So it didn't take me long to get back to where I was. But yeah, it was tough. It's really tough because, when you meet people and they say, oh, how's business going? You go, oh, well, it's not, no, we wound it up. It wasn't working for us. It takes a bit of courage to say that as well. And I don't know if you've found, but a short time later, I was in New York and then Oregon. And when I told the story of what happened to people I met in New York and then in Oregon, they were, oh my God, good on you, good for you. You tried. Yeah, man, what are you going to do next? Whereas in Ireland, it was, yeah, but sure, you tried it anyway. You got it out of your system. The whole mindset is different, Luckily, I never had that mindset myself. I went back and tried again,
And it is, even when I go home, even with all of the success that I've had, my dad still would say to me, "So, are you thinking about getting a job anytime soon?"
Yeah, yeah. It's bizarre. Yeah,
When I look at in the States here with regard to the level of like teaching people about entrepreneurship and financial literacy and you
hmm
know and the other big thing when I came to America, which was a big surprise to me, was the idea of an exit. When I
yeah,
started going out and talking to people about my business, and they were like, "What's your exit strategy?" And I thought, to God, like, what's an exit strategy?
yeah, yeah.
Because in Ireland, we are traditionally thought that you build a business for legacy, not for exit, so that you can give
Yes.
it to your family and then your
hmm
family can have it and that
Yeah,
they'll run it. And then I think we fall into the trap that we just talked about there, where too many people stay in businesses longer than they should, that's not profitable, which is just tipping over the line, which is no
yeah.
better than a job, right?
No.
Which is, if something is not generating profit, then
hmm
it's a job.
Yeah,
Right. It's not a business, it's a job. And if you're having
yeah.
to spend all of your time working in the business rather than on the business, that's not a business, that's a job. You
Yes.
just happen to
Exactly.
work for yourself.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know,
That's
so
it in a nutshell. Yeah.
I think that there's that, and I do hope that as we move forward, and with the way the internet is open now and what's available to people, that people in Ireland will start to really look at. And I know they're putting in support systems to be able to support them, but even side hustles here in America, everyone has a side hustle. They're a
Yeah.
TikTok affiliate, they're an Amazon affiliate,
Yeah.
they're referral partners, they're doing affiliate marketing, whatever it is. And I just don't see that same appetite in Ireland. And it's not that people are not capable, because we're more than
mhm,
capable. It's
Yeah.
just that we haven't had that exposure. And then I think it's difficult for people to understand
mhm.
and conceptualize what they don't see growing up.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a very good point. And it's something, I have a 14-year-old daughter now, and she's grown up around the way I do things. And then the opposite side, then her mother is a social worker. So it's a public service job. So she sees the difference between the two. She has exposure to that, but that's a phrase that I use all the time. That if you haven't seen it, you can't do it. And that's kind of, I think it's a very key to success, is that if you haven't seen somebody else doing it, which brings me on to mentoring as well, which is
Yeah.
something I do a lot of with young people. But also, I had some fantastic mentors, and if it hadn't been for them, and if I hadn't seen what they were doing, I probably would have given up after Exclusive Sound Factory and go, you know what, 9 to 5 job, look, for the sake of it. But if it wasn't for those mentors that kind of took me under their wings and, no, go for it, give up today, try it, sure, what have you got to lose? And it was great.
Where someone said you were only one conversation away from a health crisis,
Yeah.
right? Which I think so. Talk to me a little bit about that and the resilience to come back from that, like knowing, like obviously my dad has cancer twice. You know what I mean? So
hmm
like I think there is not a single Irish family really out there that hasn't been affected, right? The
Yeah.
rates of cancer in Ireland are very, very high. I think they're
hmm
saying statistically like it's like 1 in 2 or something right now,
Yeah.
which is
One or
insane.
two. Yeah.
So that's like, it's either your mom or your dad, it's one or the other. And then
Yeah.
if you have three siblings, like the odds are stacked against us. So talk to me about your resilience in that journey.
Okay. And this is, such a huge influence. So when we talk about, the business failing and what I learned from that, for me, being diagnosed with cancer when I was 28, and it was late stage cancer. I was told I'd probably be dead within 6 months. I'd be lucky to get a year. I'll be 53 in November. So obviously that prediction wasn't completely accurate. Um, but it was a really tough time. So from, I suppose, when I was diagnosed in 2001, a year didn't go by, right up until 2014, where I didn't have some kind of surgical intervention or some kind of treatment over that period of time. So I was in and out of hospital the whole time. I saw a lot of things. it's such a grounding thing, and cancer is the great leveler, because you're there with people from all different walks of life, all different ages, all different backgrounds. And for me, it was a catalyst. And now I can say at this stage of my life, looking back, that maybe having that diagnosis and having that illness and all the tough times that came with it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. And that sounds so odd when I say it out loud, but everything I am now is because of that. So what that gave me was the first thing was survival. And the big challenge for me, and I think a lot of people when they have cancer, is if you're of the mindset, I'm going to beat this thing no matter what, then when you do beat it, or whether you beat it or not, it goes away and you get better. It's very difficult to wrap your head around that. The existential questions, you become a bit of a philosopher and go, why am I here? Why was I saved? All these kind of things. And for me, it completely shifted my whole mindset to a different road. And the things I learned during that illness, one thing I learned for sure, sitting around hospitals all day, was patience, and how to enjoy my own company, because you quite often would just be sitting in a hospital bed. Saw some horrendous things. People died to the left and right. I was there when people died and passed away in a hospital bed next to me. You get to know their families coming in and out. Of the group I had treatment with, I'm the only one that's still alive. So every day when I get up, I'm so grateful. I'm just grateful that I have an opportunity to do whatever it is I choose to do, make whatever mistakes I choose to make, but I have a focus on doing something worthwhile and not wasting time. Because when you're that ill for that long, there was one situation where I was gone, I was dead, and I had this near-death experience. That's a whole other podcast, Aoife. But it was that in 2014 was just life-changing as well. So again, that gave me that extra focus where you can go, you talk about illness just being one conversation away, but death is sometimes only a breath away, and you just never know. So for me, that every moment of every day is useful. What am I doing today? What am I going to do to make myself better, to make the world better, to do something creative, to do something worthwhile? So that for me was massive. And I suppose from that point on, from 2014 on, that really was my energy came back. Everything started looking up, and everything changed. So for me, that was a massive thing. It was the catalyst that changed everything that had come before, and got me to focus in the moment, and let the future take care of itself. So
do you think that was a compelling factor?
Yeah, massively so. There's two aspects to that. Okay, so there was one part. When people ask, so Exclusive Sound Factory had come and gone. I was working for an amazing woman at the time. She won't mind me mentioning her name, Catherine Tiernan, she owned a company at the time, Era Communications. It was tied in with part of Digiphone as it was at the time. An amazing businesswoman. I had been working for her for 6 months when I was diagnosed with cancer. And she was hugely supportive. She let me hold on to the company car and everything until I went into the hospital. She was an absolute gem. But and a great inspiration for me as well. But I had just started that job. I was only a few months in it. And then I was ill, and I was too ill to work. And people ask me, what inspired you to go back into business again? And I always say hunger inspired me to go back into business again, because I was going for interviews and I was so ill that I had no choice but to explain why I looked unwell, and they were literally just going, oh right, God, that's terrible, and we're closing over the books, going, no way I'm going to get a job here. So I could either lie about how ill I was, or I could set up my own business, and that's what I did. So as soon as I got well enough, I originally set up a driving academy for the corporate sector, because I had contacts in the corporate sector. So I had to train as a driving instructor, and then I had to go and do the advanced driving course, the police driver courses, all those kind of things, and then set up an advanced driving academy, got into the corporate sector, and built my consultancy business from there. And I kind of haven't looked back since. So that was one, it was hunger. Yeah, the second one with the risk, I won't name the multinational here, but when I started my very first contract with a corporate client, I had no money and I was having a conversation with their finance person. And that person said to me, is there anything we can do for you? I know you've had a rough time. And I said, well, actually, I need to buy materials for this training course. And we don't really have the finances at the moment. And I couldn't finish the sentence. And she said, how much do you need? And I said, oh, God, $6,000 would be a huge help. And she said, oh, hold on there. And she sat down, she wrote me a check for $6,000. And she said, listen, I can run that through my expenses. Don't worry about it. We'll sort it out with finance later on. I was going, and she knew, and you often think in a situation like that, why would she even have asked me the question? Mm-hmm. She knew we were a new startup, but she wouldn't have known that we didn't have the money to, I would have had to go to the bank. I would have got it from somewhere. But the fact that that individual took that step to ask and then saw me kind of stuttering over it and then goes, yeah, how much? No problem. We can look after that. And the contract was worth about $80,000, but I didn't have the $6,000 at the start. And only for that person saw this, picked up on it and said, I can sort this out. Nobody was ever any the wiser about that. So
I think you make a really valid point there, and it's definitely something even here in the States that I struggle with. Like I'm on my third company here right now, and I've bootstrapped everything, right? And now I've gone more into investor circles and capital raising. I go to a lot of these capital raising events, and they're like, how much do you need? What do you want? What helps you get? And I think it's an Irish thing for sure. Probably could be a UK thing as well. We're not the type to ask for stuff. We're kind of conditioned to say, no. And even if someone offers, we'll have, no, I'm good. We could have like €5 in our bank account. We're still going to pretend. Everything is good. And I think as entrepreneurs, when we go back to the concept of how it's built, one of the most important things is skill sets that you need to learn. Well, there's 3, I would say. Number 1 is sales. If you can't sell, you can't succeed, right? You have to learn how to sell yourself, sell your vision, and sell your business. The second thing that you have to learn is about the ability to ask. The ability to be able to clearly articulate and walk into a room with someone who can help you, know that you deserve to be there, know that, if, don't fake it till you make it, act like you belong, know that you deserve to be there and be able to ask for help and accept it, because there's the 2 sides to that. Asking and receiving are 2 different things. And then the third point that I have in that is your ability to be able to negotiate the ask, right? Because, sometimes people say, and then we're like, oh, that's great, amazing, let's run on that. I know I had a conversation with someone recently, and it was about, there was an offer put on the table of $1 million for something. And she said no to it. And he said, I knew you were smart. How about 3 million?
Wow.
Because she understood the art of negotiation.
Yeah.
And often I think sometimes as entrepreneurs is what we're building, we undervalue what we do, and then we arrive to the table with a teaspoon instead of a shovel.
That's a very good point, Aoife, because I find that, and sometimes I find people, when you tell people what you are or what you have asked somebody else for, and they're in shock, they're going, yeah, oh my God, they must have thought you were very cheeky. No, why? If they give me money and they invest in me, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure they get their investment back and it pays off for them, because the next idea I have, I want them to come and invest in that as well. And I used to think that was a cliche. Oh, people invest in people. People do invest in people. That really is what they're investing in. It's you can have the best idea in the world, but like you said, if you can't sell it to somebody and explain it, articulate it and say, this is where this will make money for you and show you a return on your profit. And one thing I've always said to people as well, I used to run start your own business courses in the Midlands when the construction sector was down. And one thing I met a lot of unemployed people there who didn't really know. And one thing I'd always said to them was, if you can't sell, either learn to sell or hire somebody that can sell on your behalf, because otherwise you won't eat. And it's as simple as that. You won't get anything. And I thought that was a very good point that you made there, about if you don't know what it is that you want and how you can sell it to people and explain to them the benefits for them, you're selling those benefits, and like what we spoke about at the start there, where we're saying, well, you have X amount of people, you need to get them through inductions, it needs to be high quality, it needs to ensure their safety. We can do that in a much more efficient way and in a much safer way, that the people at the end of it can actually prove the learning outcomes. They can show proof of learning. Can you do that at the moment? No, not really. You mentioned earlier on about the musical I wrote, which, again, we were talking about having cancer. The bulk of that was written while I had cancer. So I wasn't, so when I was too ill to work, I was writing songs and I was writing the script. That eventually came to fruition. And for the last 6 years, I've been working on it. I wrote it, I composed it, put the whole show together. But that's all I knew how to do. So, I could write music, I could compose, write songs, compose music. But it came to a point then where it became obvious to me that this is outside my experience, this is outside my skill set. So I grew up with 9 sisters, Aoife. I'm one of 13 children. I'm number 11. I have 2 younger sisters, 7 older sisters, 3 older brothers. But I grew up surrounded by women, strong, very intelligent, could, get stuff done kind of people. So I had always had a lot of female friends, and always valued the female perspective on things. One thing I found that in the industry, in musical theatre and in theatre and entertainment generally, that the younger women that I was dealing with didn't really get a look in. So what I did was I put together an all-female team. At the time, they were aged between 18 and 25, considerably older now, 6 years older. But they now run that. So they run the show. They run Double F Music Production. They are the team behind it. And so that in itself is an example of, that is the advice I would give to people. If you don't know everything, you can have the idea to do something, and if you want to spend 10 years become an expert in it, or having that skill set or being able to do it efficiently and effectively, fine. But for me, it was getting to the point where, okay, we now have a product, I can't take it any further, so I need to get a group of people who are smarter than me in this field, who are better at me, who have who know how the industry works. And that's what we did. So we built a team around that show. So for me, that's the advice I would give anyone, is that when you get it to a certain size, and that your expertise is better off bringing it in that direction, you need to take people on who are going to do the work that you're not good at, quite simply. And it takes us back to the whole thing about, if you can't sell, hire someone that can, or learn how to do it yourself. But for me, that comes down to every aspect of the business. So that's the real advice. Only key piece of advice I give to people is, obviously, be your authentic self. Don't pretend to be something that you're not. Be honest with people. All those basic things that we were raised to believe in, and take a bit of pride in yourself and in your work. But for me, from a business perspective, if you try to do everything yourself and you think you know what you're doing, but you actually don't know what you're doing, and there's somebody out there who can help you, who's better at it, that's who you need to have in the room with you. Or in the room with the person. Have you ever been in a situation where you've gone, oh God, no, I'm awful now talking about money. Will you do that for me? That kind of stuff. And go, yeah, absolutely, no problem. Yeah. I've no problem doing that. So we need to know our strengths, I suppose.
When I first came over here, the money conversation was always a difficult conversation because I think in Ireland we're conditioned, not to brag, don't let anyone know how
Yeah.
much you earn, all of this sort of narrative that goes on about.
Hmm.
And now, because I've spent so much time here in the US and I'm around so many entrepreneurs, it's like, what's your revenue? What's your revenue goal? How much you making? How much it costs? What's your profit margins?
Yeah.
And people are just sitting down disclosing like numbers and money. And,
Hmm.
I talk to people who have 100,000, and then the next day I could talk to someone who has 100 million. It really
Yeah.
depends on the conversation if I'm talking about it. But I think when you actually build your relationship with money, you understand that money is nothing more than energy.
Hmm.
It's nothing more than a frequency. It's nothing more than a vibration. And if you embed and embody shame around money, and you embed and embody a sort of like not wanting to discuss it with anyone or try to hide, you're kind of being ungrateful in many ways for
Yeah.
the money. And don't be surprised if the money leaves, because money stays where it's welcome.
Yes.
And, when it's welcome, it's discussed and it's an open conversation. And I think that is also when we talk about how it's built. If we just to summarize on the conversation, how it's built by, first of all, knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses. It's built by bringing in people to help you, understanding the art of sales, negotiation, and the ask. But then,
Hmm.
most importantly, not to be ashamed of your success, not to have any success guilt around how you're making and what you're doing, because there's nothing to be guilty about. And for anyone who says, well, that's fine for you because you live in America and da da da, listen, you are never going to be criticized by someone who is doing more than you.
Exactly.
Right. And that's the reality. If you're getting negative feedback from people with regard to you being above your station, or you thinking you're great, or you being in love with yourself, that is really a direct reflection of that person's inner dialogue with themselves. And all you're doing is holding up to a mirror to them, reflecting what they're not doing. And it's a
Hmm.
lot easier for them to come and criticize you rather than to actually sit with themselves and really do that self-analysis about why is she able to do that versus why can I not do that. And
Yeah.
that arrives down to mindset. And I think as an entrepreneur, when you're building anything, you need a thick skin, because people are going to come for you. People are going to have opinions about you, but that's why it's so important to surround yourself, like you mentioned, with the right members, with the right team, with an ecosystem of friends and family.
Hmm.
If you can get them to subscribe to your ideas, they're often the toughest ones.
Yeah.
Get them to subscribe where they support your goals and they support what you're doing. And I
Mm.
think that really builds the foundation for success. And that is, to summarize, that's really how it's built.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. It's very, and that's a very succinct way of putting it. And just one thing just jumped to my mind there. I don't know if you've seen it lately, but it's been going around on various social media where a teacher is talking about the cringe factor. Where kids are kind of going, oh no, cringe. I don't want to tell people about it. I don't want to, no, stop drawing attention to me. And I think that carries on. And that's something that I see as well. And takes us back to the point you made earlier: if you can't see it, you can't do it. Is that people don't almost want attention? Oh, people are going to think, oh, people aren't going to describe me as humble. This thing about being, oh yes, well, humble. Well, humility is all well and good, but at the same time, you need to take credit where it's due and give credit where it's due. And like you said, I will have no problem with that. People are shocked sometimes when I talk about money and talk about how much we made or how much we lost on this project or that project. Should be an open conversation. But again, it's the mindset. You either think that way or you don't. So
Well, Fergus, thank you so much. Great conversation. Always a pleasure to talk to you. And like I say, if you have any questions about what's going on in the AI space or avatar creation or any of that, you'll in the next. I have an event on Friday, so I have to have all of the assets ready and up, and where we'll do our soft launch of Double. Um,
brilliant. Yes. Yeah.
yeah, really bringing the Irish roots to America.
Yeah.
So really looking forward to that. I think this is for anyone who's looking for a career path or looking for what they do. You need to be learning AI. You need to be learning automations. You need to be learning AI generated content. You need to be learning how it's one of the most valuable skill sets within this year and for the next 10 years that you're actually going to learn how to leverage and how to use as we move forward in this digital age of AI. So
Yeah, I
thank you very
agree,
much.
100%. Great,
I
Eva.
really
Listen, absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for having me on. I look forward to talking to you again soon.